Good morning. My name's J. Michael Wilson, and I've been a sculptor for the last 35 years. And this particular piece that we're in front of is one of my favorite sculptures. I did it in 1990. We did two full-size horses. They were life and a quarter. Um, and they are installed in downtown Glendale. Um, when we installed the piece, I was just really moved by how beautiful they looked, and I just thought, I can't destroy the molds. So I decided to cast just the heads of both horses. Um, I had the pieces, the heads cast, and had the pedestals made for them, and I had them in my possession until 2005. The name of the piece is The Power and the Passion, and the reason for that is there's one horse that's rearing up, and that's passion, and the other horse is down on his front legs straining, and that's power, because I think he just really represents that. And when I was working on them, it took me 6 months to do the first horse, because that one established the size. And while I was working on it, I thought I should be calling this the agony and the ecstasy, not the power and the passion, because it did take quite a bit of work, and it was the largest piece I had ever done. And I was on a double scaffold. I don't do real well with heights, but I was determined to make this one of the best pieces I'd ever done. My inspiration for this particular piece, the developers were building a 26-story building in downtown Glendale. And every time I've seen a sculpture in front of a building, there was no relationship between the artwork and the building. So I thought, the sculpture has to work with the building. And I just saw teamwork between the sculpture and the building. And so then immediately I saw this team of horses that were working together. And I thought, that's a great comparison to the people working together in the building. And because the building hadn't been built yet, I thought, what if we had these horses pulling a section of the building out just a bit? So my original inspiration was to have these two powerful horses just pulling and straining. There was going to be cables wrapped around their muzzles and around their necks, and you can see the indentations in the muzzle where the cables were going to go. And then the cables were going to go back and attach to the building, and there was going to be a section of the building pulled out, just a small amount that would not be noticeable at first. And everybody loved the idea except for the architect. He did not want the lines in his building changed. So it was decided that we'll do the cables, but we're not going to have a section of the building pulled out. The day we went to install the cables, the developer said, "You know what? It looks great without the cables. What do we need the cables?" So they don't have cables on them in the installation in Glendale. And as an artist, you sometimes have to make compromises, and I just thought, well, okay, actually we all kind of have these invisible ties that hold us back from doing things, and so I thought, let the viewer complete the picture however they wanted to see it. I've had these two pieces in my own personal collection because they meant so much to me. I know that I can't keep all of my work, and I was about to move out of California, and I thought, maybe I could part with these, and I couldn't think of a better place than the Johnson estate. Ken and Rhodey have been good friends of mine, and because the valley's been so important to me, I grew up with horses. I used to bring my horses up here over 45 years ago. To have these pieces here meant the world to me, and I couldn't have thought of a better place for the two pieces to reside than at this location. If I had to pick a favorite of the two, I would say it was this one. This horse is passion, and I'm pretty passionate about my work and what I do, and I've been so fortunate and blessed to be able to do this for the last 35 years. These guys being done in 1990, 91, you know, that goes back a bit, and after all this time, I still have that same feeling towards this horse as I did when I first made it. When you're looking at these pieces, you may not realize that the horse heads actually move. I designed the pedestals in a way that would sort of duplicate the originals in front of the building. This horse being taller than the other one, so I had this pedestal I think it's about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet taller than the other one. And the reason for the movement is I just don't like static sculptures. And I think as the light changes, you can get different effects with it. I just kind of like the fact that you have options. And I don't know. It was kind of an interesting problem. How do you mount just horse heads? You know, I couldn't just put it on a wall. So that's how the design for these pedestals came up, and I think that they also kind of represent the building. The building is the tallest building in Glendale, and so I wanted this structure to kind of give the same feel that the building does. For those that aren't familiar with the bronze casting process, it's really pretty intense. I spent about a year doing the clay originals, and it was about 3,000 pounds of clay. And then somehow those pieces had to be transported 10 hours away. And how do you move clay that's an oil-based clay that never hardens, you know, 10 hours without destroying them? The foundry agreed to come to my studio and mold them in my studio. So each horse had molds made of it. There's probably 40 pieces to each horse that was molded. And then those pieces the molds will be taken and they'll pour wax into those pieces. So each piece goes into wax, and then they make another mold of the wax, and that wax is melted out and replaced with bronze. Then you take those 40 bronze pieces and you have to weld them all together. The welds have to be cleaned up so that you don't see any seams. There's probably at least 10 other people that work on these sculptures besides myself. It took 1.5 years to cast them in bronze. So I guess you can maybe understand why it was hard to part with the molds. Plus, the molds are not cheap. The molds can be half of your casting costs. So it's very difficult to destroy the molds, but once they're destroyed, there won't be any more exactly like them.